Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Beneath the Surface, an A&G Concrete Pools podcast. As always, I am your host, Luke Hannon, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Tim Sherry, Central and North Florida sales rep of Byrd Moreton Associates, and Michael Moreton, president of Byrd Moreton Associates. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's fantastic to have you here. I'm excited for the conversation. You guys are most involved with us directly through Thermeau, which, for those who don't know, is an equipment, primarily a heat pump manufacturer in our world. But I'm curious of your stories individually to start. Tim, where did you get your start in this industry? I know you've been in it a long time. What was that initial kind of entrance like? And then how have you seen your journey grow from there?
Sure. That's a great question. So out of college, I was originally working for a plumbing distributor. It was a plumbing and a pool distributor, but I was on the plumbing side of it. And it's a little different than pool. And I always noticed that the pool rep seemed to be having more fun than I was having. So I'd asked the manager at the time if maybe I could have a few pool accounts. And timing in life is everything, right? So first pool account I called on, it was a big builder in the Orlando area. It just so happened the day that I got there, a competing distributor had misplaced their order through a fax machine. Shows you how long ago it was. And the purchaser, asked me if I carried the stuff that he was looking for because he had people out on the job site. I said I do. I loaded up my truck, got in my truck, went back to the branch, loaded up, delivered it, came back, and the guy said, "You have all of my business from this point forward," which caused the pool-only distributor to say, "Who is this young kid that just came in here and took all of our business? We need to hire him." So that was my opportunity to get into pool-only. So I worked for a distributor by the name of BLN, which is now SCP.
Gotcha.
And after doing that for a few years, I met Michael's father and started working for them. That was 30 years ago next month.
Michael, how has it been on your side?
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. I mean, this is as Tim alluded to, my father started this company over 35 years ago, and so right out of college, I actually moved down to Florida to Orlando and was working on our warehouse for a little bit, and then was transferred up to Philadelphia and started being a sales rep up in the Northeast. Was up there for about 5-6 years, and then transferred back down to Florida, and have continued to just grow in responsibility in the company. And it's been an amazing ride, and get to work with great people like Tim.
Now, you allude to there, obviously going north. Are you guys a national and international distributor? How do you kind of approach business? What's your market?
Yeah, so we're an independent manufacturer rep firm, right? So manufacturers will hire us when they don't want to hire their own factory reps. They'll outsource their sales force to us. We have rep firms up and down the East Coast, and then also out in the South Central part of the United States, the Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana markets.
So I'm sure because of kind of the nature of pools and being hotter climates and year-round climates, being larger business, I'm sure Texas and Florida are probably some pretty large areas for you guys.
Yes, for sure. Florida is obviously one of the meccas of pools, right? Just almost every house that you see has a pool, so it's very, very important market to us. Texas is a newer market. We've been out there for about 3 years, but it's a great market. Lots of pools as well. Again, with the temperatures and just kind of the way that the builders are building pools out there and building homes out there. So what's oddly enough, though, too, is in the Northeast, there's just the sheer volume of people up there as well, is that there's a lot of pools up in the Northeast. Now, it's a little bit different pools up there. There's a lot of above-ground pools, but also a lot of in-ground pools as well. So, yeah, we're definitely positioned in some very, very good markets where there's a high volume of pools.
Now, Tim, you have kind of the boots on the ground feel for that. How have you seen the market and the industry change over the course of 30 years, particularly serving Florida and kind of the most populated areas of it as well?
Sure. Well, it's the growth overall. So the amount of homes that have been built, the amount of people that have moved into Florida it's caused what I call the mega builders, which is the guys that build the pools, the pool builders that build the pools for the large home builders, the Lennars, the Pulte's, and all that. When I first got started, it was a thing, but it wasn't so much of a thing. It was, these 10 builders between them built, 3,000 pools. Now this guy's building 3,000 by himself. And that's a little bit of a different challenge because they're spread really thin. When they're dealing with one of our manufacturers, they're in need of us 7 days a week. It used to be a 5 day a week. Now it's, hey, we're on a job site on a Saturday. This is what we need. So we have to make phone calls with the distributor, or we have our own facility in Apopka, Florida. So it's changed in that way. There's, I would say, the growth of the mega builder.
So for a company like Angie, where we have a relationship with the Pulte Homes, with the Coulter Homes, who I think certainly fits in that kind of description as well, it has been just such an astronomical expansion, I think, particularly since you look at 2020 as this mass turning point of the world as a whole, but I think especially the swimming pool industry, and seeing just how much expansion, particularly in our area, how much expansion there was, because Port St. Lucie for a long time was a smaller town. It wasn't quite as developed. And then it feels like in the last 10 years or so, it's really taken off in terms of how much building has been done, how many new communities have come up. When we look at something like the PGA Village communities here, when we look at down in Tradition and the Astor Creeks that are coming online, and just these massive plots of land that are now becoming residential homes, how has been adapting to that kind of mass influx been for you guys? Because I know for us on our side, we had so many growing pains when you go from building 200, 250 pools a year to 400 or 450 pools a year. There were a lot of lessons learned that we now have taken with us and made us a better company. But what was that like, adjusting to what none of us could have predicted?
Well, I would say the adjustments that you were going through, we were going through them on a different level, though. When the volume goes up like this, we represent a number of manufacturers. Most of our manufacturers are able to keep up, but sometimes when the growth spikes at a serious level, COVID out, notwithstanding, it's sometimes it's a little tough to keep up. So just those things, really, the amount of pools and the stress that it puts on every level of our industry. For us, making sure the product's available, we can handle any issues that you may or may not have, whether it be at the distributor level or at your level. And for you guys, finding the right people to do the work, it's every layer of it.
Yeah, and for us, I think on the topic of the subcontractors, we try to keep as much of the process in-house as possible. I mean, we have a team now, it stands, I currently believe, over about 80 in-house employees. So many individuals who we try to bring under that roof to have those greater efficiencies, to have that greater control over quality assurance, things like that. But when you get into a time of such influx, that's when that balance of bringing in new in-house guys, finding subcontractors, how do we make sure everyone's kind of building to the A&G standard when they're having to go at 2 or even 3 times the speed they're used to. I'm curious, on your guys' side, you alluded to a lot of the kind of challenges that you were going through, maybe even at a larger scale than someone like us, because of all the different branches that you have. How have you seen the lessons learned from that time kind of matriculate down to where you're at now, and how has that improved the business as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the manufacturers that we represent, I mean, everybody learned a lot during COVID, right? And a lot during these spikes. I think as well is that they learned how to maybe strengthen relationships with their suppliers, their raw material suppliers, and maybe buy raw materials better, and also help them kind of maybe force their hand a little bit to expand their manufacturing processes as well. But again, as we've been talking about, I'm sure that kind of, created its own problems of finding the employees to come and work and run those new, those new machines and whatnot. So I think overall, I think everyone just learned, a lot, and us including, definitely during COVID and during the spikes, we were battling and we were trying to help out, our customers as much as possible. And, but again, when it came to certain lead times or things along those lines, when some of our manufacturers didn't know when those raw materials were coming in, it was very hard to say, to give an accurate time frame of when, those products were going to arrive, because we knew that, jobs were waiting on some of these products.
I will say one of the core tenets of Byrd Moreton that his father always pounded into us at the very beginning was the importance of communication. And I will tell you, during these spikes and everything that's changed over the years, is that has magnified itself, right? Especially, we talk about COVID, but even now, or in the last few years since we've worked our way past COVID and the business is still spiking in some levels, is just the importance of communication. Like, it's important for our manufacturers to communicate with us like, hey, our shipment of this is behind, so I can communicate that to you, to our builders, so that they can adjust. Right, that's the important. If you communicate, that allows you to maybe move on to another part of your level that you can get to while we wait to get the stuff that we're waiting to get to.
Well, and it's a great point. I think something, Michael, you touched on there briefly is it's such a relationship-focused industry. Those are perhaps more so than maybe any other, having those interpersonal connections, having those individuals you can call on in a time of need. Because like you mentioned, we're all kind of in sequence of one another. If your raw materials distributors can't get you the correct information, you can't turn around and give us the correct information, then we can't talk intelligently to the client.
Correct.
And that's kind of where it always ends. We want to create the best possible product, but also the best possible experience for them. We want to make sure that it's something that is not only kind of efficient, but as enjoyable as construction can be. And we're not kind of in their backyard for 8-9 months at a time. Right now, the construction team, they're sitting at about a 6-week build for most residential. So it's great to be able to have that pace, but that's a reflection of those guys, all the work that they've done, but also companies such as yourselves who have done the work to make sure that those chains are effective, that the relationships are there. So when something comes down the line like that, we're all prepared to do it. So when we look at relationships, particularly in the swimming pool industry, they're ones that can often be formed through the chains that we just described, whether that's an interaction with a raw material manufacturer provider, whether that's someone like an SCP, who's this large-scale distributor of a lot of different products. Sometimes we're interacting with you guys directly. Sometimes we're interacting with them to get to you. Was that kind of how that first connection with A&G and Travis was made? Was that something where a partner along the way kind of made that first introduction?
Yeah, no, absolutely. SCP introduced me to Travis mostly because of the relationship that you guys had with Thermeau, which is one of our manufacturers as well. You guys were buying the Thermeau heat pumps through SCP and obviously doing a great job with them. And so SCP wanted me to get involved with the account and with Travis, to get to know Travis, create a relationship with Travis because of the partnership that between A&G and SCP and Thermeau all have. And it's been great. The very first time that I ever met Travis was actually out on the golf course. And I don't know if people know this, but Travis is a heck of a golf player as well.
He is.
So that was my first introduction to Travis and the A&G team and your company as a whole. And it's been a great partnership.
Well, and you make such a good point there for you guys, you have such a large book of business. You're servicing so many different of those manufacturers. We interact pretty exclusively through Thermeau. And that is part of our larger equipment set, and is something that maybe a little more specialized for individuals who are looking to kind of create a very particular kind of space, who want maybe a more year-round appeal to it, as opposed to individuals who just want to use it when they're down in the summer. So when you look at Thermeau as a part of your kind of overall business, what kind of role do they play, and kind of what is the attention that they get in comparison to maybe some of the other partners that you have that are under your larger umbrella?
I would say that they're all equal. It's a political answer, but it's a true answer as well. But Thermeau is very important to us. They always have been. We've been partnered with them basically for 23 years now. They're a fantastic manufacturer. They supply, they communicate, they stock in our facility that we mentioned in Apopka, so it's always readily available. They answer problems when they do prop up. They answer them immediately, swiftly. They hire the right people inside at our place in Apopka to manage all of that. So yes, they're very important because they prioritize us just as much as we prioritize them. So,
do you feel as though we've talked on sort of the interpersonal relationship side, but when you allude to something there, like having the right people representing Thermeau in your own facility, how important do you guys think it is to have kind of every chain aligned with that overall vision, with having that communication, that transparency, and making sure that there's no bottlenecks or there's no real weak link in the chain to make sure that everything kind of goes as planned?
Yeah, it's very important because, Thermeau is they want to put problems, whatever that may be, to bed instantly. And they really, really pride themselves on building such a phenomenal heat pump. But things just tend to happen, you know. And but at their core, they are a very customer service focused company, and they want to make sure that everything is running smoothly. All the heat pumps in the market are running great and running well without issues or without anything along those lines. We don't have hardly any issues with our heat pumps, but things do tend to happen, right? So outside factors that can happen, and it's just so important to have the right people, everybody communicating together inside and communicating to companies like A&G to make sure that your clients are taken care of in the fastest way possible.
Well, because to the point you made there, we are in as lovely a climate as it can be sometimes, a climate that also has its fair share of incredibly intense weather. Mm-hmm. And when you're putting things outside on an equipment pad exposed to the elements, inevitably there's only so much lab testing you can do before there's something that happens in the field that you just weren't aware of, whether that's gutters depositing water right on top of the equipment, sure, whether that's a hurricane that comes through or intense sunlight because of the positioning. Those are things that you can't quite account for in the same way. When you look at kind of the heat pump, because that is how Thermeau kind of interacts with us primarily, that's one of the big elements that is incorporated. What should a client know when they're considering that? Maybe as opposed to a gas-based alternative or something that might be an alternative heating method to that format.
To me, it's the most efficient way to heat it as far as savings and durability and some of the stuff we just talked about. Florida is the largest swimming pool heat pump market in North America.
Really?
Yes, for a reason. If I tell you who's second, you're probably going to be shocked. It's Montreal and Quebec, which is where Thermeaus are made. In North America, the second largest.
Well, I feel like that almost makes more sense because they really need it up there. I'm down here, you only need it for a few months a year.
Well, if you think about it, though, the reason why it's so effective in Florida is heat pumps are dependent upon the outside ambient temperature. So we have a very warm temperature for the majority of the year. And even in our cold spots, the further south you get, where we're down at right now, it doesn't get that cold for the most part. So the hotter it is, the more efficient ours works, right? That's why you save money in ours as opposed to paying for the gas or the electricity and all the kind of stuff that would go with what would be an alternate option for this. Up north, doesn't get that. So they have to work a lot harder. So that's why I always found it a little bit odd that was the second largest market in North America for swimming pool heat pumps. But to answer your question, because our climate is very conducive for a swimming pool heat pump because of the outside ambient temperature, it works a lot quicker down here than it would in other marketplaces where it gets a little bit cooler throughout the year.
Well, I think that's something great for potential clients to consider when they're looking at what are the options available to them, because we always try to lead with those questions initially of how do you envision this space working for you and your family? How do you envision yourself being in the body of water? If you're someone who's like, I'm just never going to swim from November to February, it's a very different kind of conversation than if someone who wants to be able to heat that year round. And to your point, with the heat pumps and the ambient temperature, that's something to think of. Because if you can heat that body quicker, because the ambient temperature is higher and you can get it to that desired temperature faster, doing so with a lower run cost, why wouldn't you go down that path?
Agreed.
Have you seen a large change in the construction or the nature of the heat pump that's made it more efficient, that maybe has made it more successful in a place like Montreal where they're going to be fighting more intense temperature change?
Well, I tell you what, Thermeau has made some mechanical changes to their units to make them a little bit more efficient. But I tell you the change that I've seen in the last 6 or 7 years is kind of the growth of our heat-cool units. So, we make a pool heat pump that just heats the pool, and we also make one that heats and cools the pool. So as the climate seems to be changing a little bit more, this seems to be one of the hotter summers that we've had in quite a while. Sometimes that pool feel like bath water. You get in the summer, it's 95, 96 degrees, and that's not comfortable to go in. So you buy a heat cool unit of Thermeau. Let's say your sweet spot is 88 degrees. You put it at 88 degrees. In the winter, it'll heat it up to 88 degrees, and in the summer, it'll cool it down to 88 degrees. So the growth of that, we've always made them. A lot of our competitors have always made them, but it wasn't something that I really felt was a big niche. And in the last 5 or 6 years, it's become huge for us, and I believe our competitors as well.
Now, On a technical side, because I know it was one of the things I was so curious about when I started here at A&G, and I know a lot of clients ask, how is it that you heat and chill the body? Is that water flowing through the unit? Is that something where you're dispensing kind of a certain element into the water as it goes through filtration? How does that process work?
So you're going to get too technical for me. So I don't know how deep I can get on it because I'm not that well versed on it, but I will tell you that there's a valve involved. So this is the way I like to describe it. So a swimming pool heat pump is really no different from your heat pump unit that's in your house that's cooling your home, right? So you're taking the outside ambient temperature. In the case of your home air conditioner, they're taking the hot air, running it through, and they're making it cool inside of your house. So that's kind of what we're doing in the reverse in the swimming pool. So there's a valve inside of the heat cool unit that will switch in and basically make it more to where it's doing the opposite of what. So instead of taking the outside cooler temperature and making it hot, now it's taking the outside hotter temperature and making it cooler.
With that, you had mentioned earlier kind of making those mechanical changes. Is that kind of the perfection of the wheel, so to speak, with something like a heat pump, of just finding those little elements that as materials continue to improve, as new developments are made on those things, finding how they can insert? Is it complete new construction? Have you ever had like a unit overhaul where you're realizing that, to use the car equivalent, hey, if we go from rear wheel drive to all wheel drive, we can have more power here, or something like that? Or is it for you guys more about, let's get that next degree, that next percentage, and find out how we can just continually improve the unit as we manufacture it?
Yeah, I think with Thermeau, with the two owners, Stefan and Pascal, again, their attention to detail and their passion and strive for perfection on their heat pumps and the product that they are selling and manufacturing, they will make any type of little kind of tiny tweak to make their heat pump even 1% better. They have no problem in investing into the manufacturing process, into finding, more quality or a higher quality of a part or something along those lines. They're so passionate about putting the best heat pump out onto the market that they will do whatever they need to do. And whether it's small tweaks, we've never really had a major overhaul of a unit because just the way that they started out back in the day when they very, very first started out, they were actually two brothers that were owned a HVAC company. So they were out actually working on heat pumps in the market up in Quebec, Canada. And, they were basically taking the best parts. Once they decided to manufacture, they were going to start manufacturing their own heat pump. They started saying, hey, I like this product, or, this part from this heat pump and this from this heat pump and that from that heat pump. And actually then created what they believe and what we believe is the best heat pump on the market by taking all of the best parts that were in all these other heat pumps and created their own. And that's how they started, and that's still their main goal is, again, to have the best heat pump on the market.
And I think that speaks to kind of the innovative drive of the industry as a whole, because I know for us, we're constantly looking at how can we improve our process? How can we reduce timelines? How can we have less construction waste? How can we make guys more efficient so they can do more work, all while keeping that same quality of the material? One of the best ways to do that in our mind is having people who come from different backgrounds. We have construction managers from North Carolina. We have individuals who've worked overseas before. So seeing a different set of challenges, and I'm sure it was the same process for the partners at Thermeau there, where they've seen all these different iterations of heat pump, and they've seen all kind of the things that can go wrong. So to be able to pick and choose and kind of piece together the perfect unit and then iterate on that concept, I think it's a great way to go about it.
Yeah, that was the key. Michael hit on it. Is when we first met them many years ago, they brought a unit to us. And they took it apart, and again, not the most technical guy, and he was showing, like, this is the best board that they have. This is the best everything, because they had been working on all the other ones, and they saw what failed in the field, what worked in the field. So when they started building their heat pumps, they kept that in mind. And it's a funny story I will tell. So there's a company up in the Orlando area that does all of the right, at the time, 20 years ago, did the majority of the service work on pool heat pumps. And we have a relationship with him. So we called him in and I said, hey, they just stopped by, dropped this heat pump off, said a lot of great things about it. Can you take a look at it? And the guy's name's Dave Jurisic. He takes off the front of the unit. He looks at it for a second and he turns around and looks at us. He goes, is this a joke? And I'm like, oh boy. He's like, what? He goes, this is perfect. He's got this board. So he works on them in the field too. He goes, this is the best board. This is this. And look what he did here. Like this. He goes, does all of his units look like this? And I said, well, that's the only one we've seen, but we get the sense it is. And he goes, well, if he makes every one of them like this, you guys should rep these. And we've repped them ever since.
But I think that speaks to, again, like if you come with a great idea and you have kind of an innovative approach that does the best version of something in the swimming pool industry. I'm curious if you guys feel about this. It's such an industry kind of divided between old school methods and old school ways, individuals who have done it the same way. They're fifth generation builders and they kind of know what works for them and they're really hesitant to adopt those new technologies. And then companies on the other side, I think A&G is one of them, where just the way that they were looking at the heat pump, we're looking at the process of where is that next item? Where is that next thing? Who's going to be new to the market that's going to innovate and create something new? Tim, as a sales rep, I'm sure you see it a lot. Do you have to fight some people on, hey, I know you've been doing this way. I know it works well, but I've got something that's better for you that can really help both you and your clients out?
For 30 years, yes. I still deal with it today. Yes. It's, yes, today. And you know what? It's worked for them for 30 years. So it's, it's a delicate conversation sometimes because they know what they're doing. They're smart. In most cases, they're smarter than I am. But yeah. So one thing that I've noticed in the last few years is there's a lot. These businesses are family owned. So as the nephews, the sons, the grandsons, or whatever, are getting more involved, they're growing up in this more advanced world right now, right? So the conversations are a little bit easier because I have a little bit more of an ally now. Like, Dad, you might want to listen to this because it's going to save you 3 hours and it's going to be better for the client. But yes, to answer your question, to this day, a lot still, hey, this is what I did 30 years ago. It works. I've been in business for 30 years. No reason to change.
But I'm sure that comes with a few stories where people have made that leap
Oh,
and then
for
come
sure.
back to you and you're like, I should have done it 30 years ago.
Oh, yes. I mean, I know we're here to talk about Thermeau. We rep other lines, and some of the lines we've repped them for the entire 30 years. And there's certain components that come in a box. I won't get into details about it. And we went out on a job site. This is within the last year. It's in the Jacksonville market. And I met a deck guy out on the job. And we pulled everything out of the box. It was a new profile of one of the products we had. And he took one of the boxes out, kind of flicked it to the side. I'm like, we need that. He goes, I don't use those. I go, well, it's pretty imperative. And I said, well, how do you do it? And he went and got some 2x out of his truck and started going with this. And I'm like, well, if you took this, and he sat there and watched me, like, just take something out of that box. He goes, I've been throwing those away for 30 years. He goes, I didn't know. He goes, I've been buying this and doing this. I go, so not only was he costing himself more on the job because he was buying products that he didn't need, he was extending or keeping himself out there longer. And he was like, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the microcosm of a little bit of that older school though. And I sit here and obviously I'm of that kind of younger generation, and I haven't grown up in the world of kind of constantly things evolving all the time. And when I was born and you had Macintosh computers and now we're here and iPhone 17s and like you see that sort
Right.
of thing. And I think that kind of inspires you if you grow up alongside that to be like, this is just the way of the world. Things constantly change. They constantly update. They constantly evolve. But when you look at an individual who has been able to provide for themselves, provide for their families, create a great living and a lifestyle that they know works and they know is consistent, I understand all those individuals who are hesitant to make the change, or who, even if they're throwing away a piece that's quite important, have done it that certain way and it's worked, and they're like, that's a part of my life. But at the same time, I think when you can bring those people along and you can have those interactions like that, it's great for everybody, because then your product's getting used in the way that it's intended. That items can be warranted in the way that they're intended because of that, and then they're cutting down on work time, they're cutting down on material costs. Tim, one thing I'm so curious about, because you service such a large area, in an area that is kind of as populated as it gets, something like a Jacksonville, something like Orlando, or something like a Vero Beach where it's a little bit smaller, do you see kind of different approaches from a more metropolitan area to something that's a bit more rural?
For sure, for sure. I guess the attitudes are a little bit different depending on where you go. I've always said the state of Florida is one state, but it's 3 different states. North Florida really is a lot like what we refer to as the South, whether it be Georgia, Alabama. Central Florida has more of a Midwest feel to it because a lot of the people migrated there. And I think the further south you get, I don't spend a lot of time in the South, but I have in the past. It has more of a Northeast feel. So there's a lot of different personalities, a lot of different, people come from the Midwest. They had different ways of doing construction that they did in the Northeast. People that are native to Florida, they have a different way of doing things. So yes, you deal with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different ways. I mentioned a time a minute ago where I taught somebody something that had been doing something for 30 years. And I will tell you on almost a monthly basis, maybe a weekly basis sometimes, I learned something from somebody that's been doing it longer than me. Like, hey, if you did this, I call the manufacturer and like, wow, we never thought of that. So yes, you learn a lot. There's a whole lot of different personalities depending on what marketplace you're in. The further south you get, the further south you get, maybe the more advanced it is, if that makes any sense. Like some of the things we just talked about as far as innovation. When you get down in here, I see a lot of the stuff that A&G is doing is kind of cutting edge from what I looked and seen down in your beautiful showroom. So a lot of that you don't see in some of the other marketplaces.
Well, I think it's the beauty of the state in a lot of ways, because we have so many people who move down, whether that is for a new career, to start a family, for retirement, whatever the case may be. They're bringing with them those different perspectives. And that kind of just only serves to give you a new lens to look at something through. Like you talked about there, you go back to the manufacturer. We never thought about it. Well, we're only limited to kind of what we can see ourselves and how we all think about it. So to get someone who might be in a completely different space, whether that's from the type of pools they're building or even the region that they're building them in, and say, hey, we tried it this way because of X, Y, and Z. And that helped us. And maybe that doesn't directly apply, but it inspires a new thought or inspires a new direction. I think that's a fantastic thing that we have, particularly within Florida.
Agreed.
Michael, for you had mentioned earlier working up in the Philadelphia area. What was it like coming back and bringing down a very interesting kind of personality type that is known with the Northeast and particularly Philly itself?
Yes. No, it was there was definitely a little bit of a change. I think I had to start talking a little bit slower and maybe not be as aggressive. And I think listen, I had a great time up in the Northeast. There are amazing people up there. The swimming pool industry up there is a great industry up there. But it's a very fast moving and very, I don't want to say aggressive, but it's a very interesting market up there, in the sense that they have such a small window during the year to build and to provide for their company, for their employees, for their families, and to make the money that they need to. And I think that goes into it. And the people up there are very, very hardworking, and it was a great experience up there. And then when moving back down to Florida, it's things, not always, but in some cases do move a little bit slower because they have such a all year to build and to run their businesses and whatnot. So it was definitely very very interesting. I wouldn't change that experience up in the Northeast for anything. It's I do love Florida, and it's been great coming back down here and reacclimating myself with the market down here.
Yeah, and it's a great point. I think one that's probably interesting. I know we have a lot of people who come through who are originally from the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Philadelphia, that kind of general region. And they have such interesting concepts about what a pool is and what a pool should be. I mean, they'll come and I want it 8 feet deep. I want it 10 feet deep. And then we think about the water tables here, and it's just not feasible in the same way that is up there. Then the flip side of that is like you're talking about. they have 6, maybe 8 months in the best of years to actually build swimming pools. So when you guys take a look at that, I imagine there's a ton of prep work that goes on in those non-building months to get ready. So when it comes time and that ground can finally be broken through, you guys can go ahead at all systems run and make sure that they're able to get the product they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, during their off time is really, as sales reps, our busiest time up there. That's the selling season, right? Once the season kicks off, a lot of decisions have been made, and they're going at 100 miles an hour. And so really, once the season kind of ends, and up there when they close down the swimming pools, and when the builders kind of start to slow down a little bit, that's when it's our time to go in and review the previous season with them, see what worked, where did they, what didn't work for them, where did they have issues, and allow us to come in with our great manufacturers and provide solutions for them and start prepping, as you said, for the springtime. It's a time where we do a lot of trade shows and open houses and things along those lines, product expos, and that's when the decisions are being made in the wintertime for the upcoming season.
Now that is kind of a great segue into one of the most intriguing things whenever I think about the industry is what's coming next. We've seen so much evolution, so much change in our world of design, the embracing of geometric designs, the embracing of minimalism, having these pools that are so sharp and so angular to match kind of modern living. On the equipment side and the distribution side, the manufacturing side, do you guys see things that are coming on the horizon, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, where you kind of see it now, and then the moment that it's going to hit the market, you think it's going to be a pretty seismic shift for people?
I will tell you, in 30 years, I feel like it's gradual, right? To answer your question, yes, I believe it's going to continue to evolve, and innovation is going to continue to move forward. I found it more gradual. I mean, every once in a while, there's a product that comes up that kind of revolutionizes some things, like, oh wow, now we can do this. So yes, I do see it continuing to evolve. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, it could be 6 months down the road. I mean, who knows when the next great widget's going to be made, right?
Yeah.
So, but I do know with technology and the advance of technology, we've seen so many things that are tied into apps now and Wi-Fi that just obviously wasn't the case 10 years ago. And now that's, I'm sure, on your level, that's a very strong talking point, right? How automated is this? Here, grab your phone, and now you can handle everything that we just built for you, whether it be your lights, your waterfalls, or whatever like this. So I'm sure that's going to continue to evolve and enhance itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think just especially with the automation, it's been very gradual over the past few years, or handful of years. But I think with the implementation, it's got to come with AI and how AI has become a part of our daily lives almost. Yeah. And I am very, very excited and interested to see how much AI is going to start to get integrated even more so into these automation systems. How much are they going to be able to self-diagnose, and how much are they going to be able to, warn the client before a problem even arises? And yeah. I'm really, really excited. Now, again, whether that's 2 years down the road, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, I'm not sure. But I really believe that that's going to be a big part of automation as AI has become more and more popular and more, accepted and
mainstream.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic point, and when we talk about kind of the newest widget, in a lot of ways, that's kind of where AI stands right now. But I think the way that it is being leveraged in ways that we couldn't imagine.
Correct.
And being applied to something like a heat pump, something that could self-diagnose, that could tell a client, hey, this repair is going to come within the next 2-3 months. Schedule that now. Get ahead of that now. And you guys can then probably collect data off the backside of that and say, how are we going to improve this? We're seeing this kind of recurring failure at this point in time, or we're seeing an inefficiency here. How can we go? So I think it's an incredibly incredibly exciting thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see
Agreed.
where it goes.
I'm with
Yeah,
you. I'm with you.
100%.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you both coming by and being on the show and being able to have this conversation. It's great getting to kind of see not only one of our partners in Thermeau, but also kind of the power and the brand and the individuals even behind that and that are making that engine go. So it's been great to talk, and
This
hopefully
has
we
been
have
great,
a,
man.
No,
Thank
it's
you
been
so much
great.
for having us.
Really, really
Yeah.
appreciate you having us on.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It's been great to have this conversation with Michael and Tim, and I hope that you'll join us for all of our future conversations. We got more community partners, more trade partners coming down the line, and it's going to be incredibly exciting to share their stories with you and how A&G takes a part in not only the swimming pool industry, but our community as a whole. So feel free to watch any of our backlog, any previous episodes, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be YouTube, Spotify, or any other platform, and we'll see you next time.